I'll tell you what I think, Red.
Tell me. Tell me what you think.
I don't think you came here for my help. See, I think you want my permission. You want to get your hands on somebody, huh? You want to hurt them. Maybe you're a little bit scared. A little scared about what that means.
It's an interesting take. I like it. But, yeah, no. Sorry, buddy. Way off on that one.
You're so full of shit, Counselor. You're so full of shit. You're guilty.
Excuse me?
Yeah. That guilt, that shame, that's my home, Red. And I can see it on you. I can smell it on you. It's all over you.
I'm gonna come back another day, Frank. Maybe catch you at a better time.
You come at me with that horse shit about saving lives. How about that friend of yours? You save his life. You lost him, didn't you, Red?
It's not about him.
Then say his name.
It's not about him. It's not about him.
Ah, for Christ's sake, say his name. Say his name, you coward! Say his name! It's not about him. You hate yourself. He's eating you up because you ain't done a goddamn thing about it.
God damn it. God damn you.
We interrupt this program to bring you...
All right, everybody, my name is Kevin.
And I'm John.
And we are The Real Movie Guys, and welcome back to another episode of The Real Review, the series where we review and discuss all your favorite movies and TV shows. On today's episode, we're taking a look at Daredevil Born Again, Season 1, Episode 4, Sic Semper Systema. Matt Murdock and Wilson Fisk's darker halves fight to be unleashed. John, another episode of Daredevil, and another quality episode, I have to say, has been delivered this week. With more importantly, if we're going to talk about anything in this episode, it was the big return of the fan favorite character, the Punisher, played by Jon Bernthal, who I absolutely loved. His show it got kind of weak towards, I think it was the second season when it was on Netflix, but Jon Bernthal as an actor, he's proven himself time and time again, man. This guy is there's no other. And when he goes on the screen as Frank Castle's tortured dark Punisher character, he's back in full form. And man, if nothing else, this is really what kind of did it for me for this episode. I had a really good time with it.
No, yeah, 100% agree. I feel like it's also an interesting point in the season where, you're starting to wonder what's coming up next and, how are they going to do this show? Because, you go with the first episode, violent, bloody,
right,
fighting, combat. So these ones have been kind of, slow and more methodical in a way.
And how do you feel about that? Because I feel like everything I'm reading, and we've touched on this before, the discourse online, and I feel like a lot of people have either dropped off or it's just negative internet toxicity, which is some BS anyway. But I feel like everyone's just saying oh, there's not enough action. There's no Daredevil. There's no whatever going on. It's just, it's terrible. I think maybe, right, there is some merit to the idea that it's a little slowly paced in some spots, right? I think the pacing is a little slow, but you kind of brought up the word methodical. I feel like that it's intentional, right? We're building up to this grand return of both Daredevil and Wilson Fisk. I think there is something here, but do you think it's a little too slow in kind of what it's trying to do here? Or do you think it should be, because we're on episode 4, right? And there's 8 episodes, I believe, this season. We're 8 or 9, I want to say. I'm not 100% sure, but
I believe it's 8.
Practically, we're at the halfway point, right? We're at the halfway point, and we have no Daredevil, which I think that's going to be corrected probably in the next episode. Spoiler alert. But at this point, do you think we should have gotten more as far as the action?
I would say I enjoy what they're doing, but I do feel like this episode should have had more action to it, or some action to it, because I think that's where you started off so strongly, and then you start going to kind of building the story, but the thing is, we can't tell the whole story yet,
right?
And I feel like there needs to be a little bit more action thrown into it. In a way.
Yeah, no, I think you're kind of right to some extent, because, again, I do think the pacing is just a bit off. I said earlier when we talked about this show, I think in an earlier episode, where I enjoy the idea of the lawyer aspect of this, right? I think it is interesting. We don't really get too much of that with Matt Murdock, but sometimes that's too much of a good thing or too much of a thing, it can be impactful on the story. And I thought what they did with White Tiger, I was good with that, right? I think they did a really good job. They really kind of set it off, and I think it puts the story in the direction it's going as far as Matt Murdock, born again, becoming Daredevil. That's the whole point of what they're trying to do here. They're slow rolling it out, but again, that's the ultimate goal here. Now we kind of detoured. So the beginning half of this episode really has Matt Murdock as meeting Leroy. He's this guy. He gets arrested for like stealing pop or stealing candy or something, or chips, whatever it is. He steals something, and they want to put him in prison for like 30 days or something crazy. And it's him going back and forth with the other attorney to try and get his sentence reduced and coming back. And ultimately what they're trying to show here is just like how unfair the system is to have this poor guy, you know, he stole something, but he has to steal because he has no money and the system's terrible, yada, yada, yada. That's all interesting, right? Sure. It's all interesting, but do we need this kind of supplemental information, John? Do you think it was necessary to throw it into this when we could have been maybe moving in a different direction?
See,
sooner,
I really think it's all how this season ends to me.
Yeah.
If all this stuff is important, if in some way at the end this all makes sense and comes together congruently,
Right.
I feel like then it's understandable. But if like this is just like, just like small talk, just wasting episodes per se, or just throwing things in, I feel like then it doesn't make sense.
Right.
But also like you were talking about, they got to stop this whole talking to the people on the camera news thing, whatever they're trying to do. Because like now that's gone to a point where you're just like, oh my God, I'm tired of these people. It's not adding really anything to it. It's just
Right.
like
And
kind of like
to be
take
fair,
up 5 minutes.
Let's be fair here for a sec. It was only one segment this episode. It wasn't really that many because I'm actually looking out for it now because it's bothered me that much. But still, that's one segment that just didn't need to happen. And I'm gonna sit here and say I don't think the whole Leroy story had to come about. I don't know again if there is gonna be a payoff. I understand having the fallout to the whole White Tiger murder. We needed some kind of fallout with that, and then I think it's his niece that comes, who, from what I kind of remember briefly, I think she becomes the new White Tiger. So I don't know if they're doing that. It seems kind of weird if we're jumping into something like that. That's where I feel like Marvel/Disney gets in trouble lately, when they start setting up these new like heroes to become like replace whatever the case is. And I feel like they drop it so quick that it doesn't even matter almost. I feel like, and again, what we're here to see is Daredevil and Kingpin Wilson Fisk. We're here to see their storyline. And ultimately, before we get into Wilson Fisk, Matt Murdock, the scene that we really needed, and again, I think it is the powerhouse epitome of this episode, which I really could say I didn't need the other stuff because of how strong this scene was him meeting Frank Castle in his little underground bunker basement, and them having just that strong conversation, John. The two of them, again, John Berthal knows how to work a scene, whether he's rubbing his head 1,000 times, which is always like the joke with him. That's what he does in everything that he's in since Walking Dead. But he just knows how to act, and him talking about grief and loss with Matt Murdock, Charlie Cox's performance here, it really made me like, all right, like it got me a little like emotion for a hot second. I think they just really were able to pull that out, especially like Matt Murdock not dealing with his grief, right? Not dealing with the death of Foggy, and he's like, it haunts you, man, it haunts you, it's deep inside you. And he's like talking about, I see my kid in my head every time. I'm like, dude, woo, especially after becoming a dad, woo. Okay, what'd you think? It was great for me, seriously.
No, yeah, 100% agree, totally. I feel like those are some of the times where you're like, you see so much of this great scene in this show, and then all of a sudden they just throw in some other stuff that doesn't make sense. So you're kind of like, all right, like I see so much potential,
Right,
and so much greatness, but what's going on? You know what I'm saying?
and it's just like the Punisher, again, John Berthel, he's just such a strong character, and they're going to interact later on. This isn't going to be the only appearance from him, I'm sure. Punisher doesn't like people using his symbol for their own greater good, so I can't wait to see how that plays out. But again, just like, and then Charlie Cox, his portrayal after that, where he's kind of just sitting there wide awake when he's laying with his girlfriend in bed, and he's just staring. Well, he's blind, so I guess his eyes, well, whatever. He's staring. His eyes are wide, and that was bad. He's just staring wide open at the ceiling, but you could tell like it's going through his head like, I made a mistake, right? I gotta let the Daredevil out. Like someone has to do something. And he goes to that rooftop with his little secret man cave up on top, where he pull the secret lever and open the door, and then like a bunch of Daredevil helmets and his batons with the whips and attached to them and everything. Awesome scene though, but awesome scene. Just him whipping it around, just like kind of getting back into it, like feeling the energy again. I'm excited for it. I think it's a really big moment, and I think we're gonna start getting that action that everyone's been asking for. I just hope it's not a little too late, right? I think we could have gotten maybe something a little sooner and maybe not ended on that cliffhanger. Or there's something else I think they could have done too. But what do you think? Do you think maybe they could have? Do you think it's smart to wait for Daredevil at this point for the next episode, or do you think they should have did something a little more with that?
I think maybe they should have done something a little bit more.
Yeah.
Just being that like this is like the halfway point, and usually in a lot of these great shows that we watch, at the halfway point is like that lead up to the end where like it's that climactic moment, and this doesn't seem like it's going, like didn't seem like it made rise yet.
Right, and it's tough because you want to show an impact to the character, right? You want to show how he's dealing with the death of Foggy, and he's dealing with the White Tiger death, and coming to terms with that he has to become Daredevil again. You want to show that to the best of your ability, and if this was a movie, it would have happened significantly faster, right? It would have happened probably within 20 or 30 minutes, we'd be talking, maybe 40 minutes, and you'd be getting Daredevil. But it'd be a similar situation if you even want to compare it that way, though, because then you'd be saying, well, he didn't become Daredevil till the end of the movie, and the movie was over at that point, just for the final fight. Yeah, you're kind of looking at that situation here, but I think we're getting it a little sooner. And again, there's still like 4 episodes left for them to deal with if it's 8 episodes. They still got 4 episodes of Daredevil, so I think people need to relax. You know, I get it, I understand, but I think people are just getting a little too stuck on that whole action thing, and we're not sitting back and enjoying the story. But again, I do understand there is some definite pacing issues. One other thing real quick, and then we'll talk about the last thing. Fisk was really good in this episode too. It was a little slower than the Matt Murdock. Matt Murdock kind of was front and center this episode. The big reveal, which I was kind of calling it from the beginning, I think, where he was keeping his wife's lover, I guess you want to call him, locked up in the basement. I'm like, he definitely has that guy like caught up somewhere or something like that. Because for a couple episodes, they've been focusing on Fisk's hands, where his knuckles are all like beat up and bloodied. And you're like, why would they be bloody? He's not doing anything. And sure enough, he's got him locked up in the basement. He's torturing this motherfucker, showing him that he is still the Kingpin. He's still that badass. I do also like some of the interactions here with the Gandolfini's character. Where he kind of leaked information about Fisk, and Fisk had to get the option of like, oh, you know, do I get rid of him? Am I gonna? He almost wanted to kill him at some point, but then he trusts like his respect and everything, his loyalty. There's some cool scenes. Again, these are very good Fisk moments we're getting. Even some of the quieter Fisk moments where he's in the school and they're all singing to him, and it's driving him crazy because he wants to make change for the city, but he wants to do it his way, right? He's such a strong character. Like, this is not the way he wants to do it.
Yeah. It's also like one of those things too, like you start thinking too, like how in the last episode where he was dealing like, or one of the few episodes, he was dealing with the cops.
Yeah.
And how he like kind of like made that guy who was going to leave, and all the cops like now they have to respect him in a way.
Right.
You kind of wonder like if that's going to come back to play too, because it doesn't seem like Fisk is really per se in charge in a way.
Well, I guess that's like the whole joke with government, right? And I feel like that was kind of one of the what they were alluding to in the one scene where they're talking about all the red tape and all the bureaucratic nonsense. He's like, I want to go and I want to change this dock to be a whatever it is, some kind of like I guess like, I don't know, like a mall, whatever it was. I had to change it into something. I can't remember exactly what it was. But he's like, oh, I want to do this. She's like, well, you have to do this first. And he's like, oh, okay, so let's do that. Well, but you got to do this first. You got to talk to these people first. Oh, okay, so I'll do that. We'll go talk to them. Well, before you even talk to them, you have to sign this paper out and get like a survey of the land to make sure we can even do it. Oh, okay. And then it keeps going on and on is like the joke, like no matter like, where do we start? And then it ends up starting like you just have to just like bring it up in a meeting, and then we'll talk about it like 6 months later or something like that. Like it's the joke. I feel like there is a lot of commentary on politics in this season. So if you're not into that, might not be your thing. I think it's a funny joke as someone familiar with the state government and how it works. It's pretty accurate, I have to say.
I also think that what was interesting too, though, that like wasn't a huge point, but like seemed like it could relate to later episodes, was when he asked his girlfriend,
right,
who is like the the psychiatrist or whatever she is,
Oh
like that
yeah,
counselor.
Matt Murdock. Yeah.
Yeah, Matt Murdock asked like his girlfriend, the counselor. He's like, he's like, oh, but you can't tell me about any of your clients. And she's like, well, all you have to do is ask me.
Right.
And that kind of made it seem like, okay, like maybe he finds out some way that she's counseling them with their marriage.
Yeah.
So maybe that comes up somewhere.
Yeah, and I like their dynamic. It's interesting to think that they apparently at some point they wanted to recast his wife in the show. Thank God they didn't, because they have phenomenal chemistry together too. Especially when they're sitting down at the dinner table and they're just having that little conversation about like the future and what they want out of the relationship and stuff like that. And you know, she told them to go home and think about what you want. Do you want to dissolve a marriage or do you want to save a marriage? And it's so powerful, man. Just like you said, when you get some really good powerhouse actors in a scene, it definitely shows. And again, for whatever you want to say about pacing or other issues with the show, this isn't typical Marvel. We're getting some actual like actors acting in a show for once, and it's nice to see. Last thing I want to touch on, and then we'll wrap up this probably overly long review at this point, is Muse. So we got to see Muse twice in this episode. We saw him in the beginning dragging a body. So he's this creepy guy. He's got like blood coming out of his eyes. He's got a white mask and like a little beanie, and he's all like, carrying a guy. And then we see him at the end like draining blood from a guy, and that kind of is it. I don't have an issue with this necessarily. I don't like stinger things like that where it's like in the beginning and then at the end. I think that time could have been used maybe more in this episode, right? If instead of showing some of these other things that we didn't need with the Matt Murdock maybe and like the BB report situation and all that, maybe we need to dedicate more time to this villain because, again, I hate to bring it up again, halfway through the show and we kind of don't have a big baddie, right? This is like the first image we're really getting of him. Yeah, we've seen the teasers of the graffiti on the wall, which is him, I'm assuming. It says Muse. They're all signed by Muse, all the different images. So, again, that must be him. But that's all we're getting, right? I think we need a little bit more. And I think, what do you think, John? Do you think it could have gone a long way just to give us some more interaction with this character who's probably going to be the center of something going forward?
Well, yeah, I feel like they have to, in a way where they're building up the Daredevil character and the Fisk character, they have to give us something to know about this character. And if you're just gonna give it to me, if you're gonna throw stuff at the wall in the last 4 episodes, it's gonna be like,
I know.
All right, I don't really care per se, you know.
And that's my fear. My fear is we're going to get a dump episode where a good 40, 50 minutes, the whole thing is just about him, right? It's going to be one whole episode about him, and it's like, all right, that's all you need to know. We're good to go. Why do we have to do it that way? I don't think it needs to be done that way. I think you can stretch it out over the course of the episode, you're showing these little teases, but you should have maybe been doing that from the beginning, giving even a little bit more information. That way, you're not doing this big exposition dump on the whole audience for a whole episode, which, yeah, it's cool. I get to know the backstory of a character. I personally don't like writing that way. So, again, it might not happen. We're predicting here, but I don't like when that happens. That's not my way of storytelling.
Yeah, or started in episode 3 where you can slowly bring it down to where it builds up a character.
Yeah,
in a way, instead of
which there's a tease. I'm pretty sure. I think his name is Hunter Duhan is cast as Bastion in the episode. He was the one who visited the psychiatrist. I think Matt Murdock's girlfriend in episode 2. He said, "Oh, will you sign my book?" And he hands it to her, and she's like, "Oh, here's my email." He's like, "I really need your help. Like, I'm a little messed up in the head." I'm pretty sure that's him. If judging by the casting, I guess that's who I have to go by. There's no reason otherwise you would have focused on this character. So that's a good tease, right? That's a nice build-up, and maybe we spend a little more time with this character. If you're going to shuffle around some of the story ideas and build up these things for Matt Murdock becoming Daredevil again, why not build this villain to make him something really special when it comes to it? And I don't know if they're doing that. Again, time will tell. We'll see when we really get to the next episode, next couple episodes even, and we'll see what happens. But with all that being said, John, I think we're done. Let's give it a final score on this one. I'm going to give Daredevil Born Again Season 1, Episode 4, an 8.7 out of 10. It's a really good episode. I had a really, really good time with it. Again, I think the pacing issues are a problem, obviously, based on this podcast you've been listening to. But I do think, I think there's enough here that you're still going to enjoy yourself if you're okay with that. If you're willing to accept that and just kind of go into it, I think there is a lot to be said. The Punisher, Daredevil scene, them just conversing with one another for a good 15, 20 minutes. That was like one of the best scenes in the show. That was akin to the Wilson Fisk Matt Murdock scene from episode 1 for me. Of them, again, you're just talking, but there's so much happening in a scene, letting the actors breathe, letting the actors act. These characters feel real to me, and it's scenes like those that really bring them to life and really make me enjoy it, maybe even more so than the action that I think the show does miss to some extent. But again, I think it's a great time. I'm not logged off yet, but I will be watching closely to see how they handle the coming, next few episodes, because there are some concerns. But again, if I said I wasn't having a good time, I'd be lying to you. So that's how I feel. John, what do you think, man?
Yeah, I'll give this like about an 8.5, I'd say. I feel like the episode was good. I'm still into it. I'm still enjoying when it comes out. I still want to keep watching it. I am looking forward to seeing more action come about it and more like stories getting told different or in a better way.
Yeah.
So I mean, I'm into it. It's not one of those things where I'm like, where some of those things you watch a couple episodes and you're like totally out. This is one that's keeping my interest at least.
Yeah, it is. And I mean, we got to give it to that. I think the strong performances, and I think it is competently shot. It's competently done. Again, the pacing maybe is an issue. I'd be more curious on a binge how this would hold up. Maybe it wouldn't be so noticeable if you were just binging this show. And I feel like that is the case with a lot of things, right? When you binge a show, it's a very much different experience when you watch it week to week. Maybe this week to week method of us watching it isn't the best way to necessarily digest what we're seeing, and maybe we'd enjoy it a little bit differently. I do also think that there are a lot of issues with this show that are not necessarily the creator's fault. It has to do with, I think, a lot with the reshoots that were rumored to have happened, where they stopped production. They had probably the first 4 or 5 episodes done, from what I can understand, and then they went back and reshot things, re-added things. Like the episode 1 was completely changed. That wasn't initially in the final product. They actually added that whole bullseye scene and everything. So they kind of knew there was a pacing issue, right? They knew there was a lack of action, so they added something in. And then again, I think the rumors of it being a longer court drama kind of show, I think, are still present, right? I can see the bones of that there. So I'm curious to see what they do with what they have and how they added to it to change it, because I think the action that we're going to see is where they amended some of the wrongs that they might have made originally in the show. But again, I think it's a great job. And most importantly, what I need to know is down in the comments below, what do you guys think? Are you enjoying the show? Do you like it? Am I off the rails here? Did you like the Punisher's performances? John Berthal, are you happy to see him back? I know it was hard to get him back. He only signed on because he said that the script was finally right. He actually quit the first time and then came back because he said, I love it now. It actually makes sense. It's exciting, right? There's definitely going to be something here for everybody. But again, what do you guys think of the episodes? Is it too long, too short? Are you bored? Do you want the action? How would you fix the show? That's what I need to know. So make sure if you made it to the end of this video, make sure you do that. Like, subscribe, comment, do all that fun stuff. My name is Kevin. That guy's John. We are your Real Movie Guys. Real guys, real movies, real thoughts. We'll see you.
If you guys like what you've seen here today, consider giving this video a like and leaving your thoughts in the comments below. If you want to stay up to date with everything Real Movie Guys related, make sure to hit that subscribe button and check us out on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. And don't forget, all you audio listeners at home, we are available on many podcasting platforms. Just search The Real Movie Guys, you should pop right up. Thank you again all so much for joining us on this episode of The Real Review. We are The Real Movie Guys. Real guys, real movies, real thoughts. Catch you next time.